Fresh, clean water is a necessity for all life on Earth. Unfortunately, many oceans and lakes are environmentally threatened at present. We must find methods that simultaneously preserve and utilize the water resources of our planet. A way to create long-term economic management of resources in certain regions would be to promote sport fishing, a form of ecotourism. At the request of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, we will go on a number of expeditions to such distinctive regions. Our first expedition will be to the Ural River.
So our journey goes east. Nowadays, it's so much easier for us in the West to travel to such exotic and exciting names on the map of the world. Our destination is Kazakhstan, where the Ural River flows into the Caspian Sea in the marshy delta land. Here you'll see angling the like of which you've never seen before. This is the home of the world's largest sturgeon, the beluga, and that's the one we're going to catch. The landscape is very flat and barren, just the river and the steppes as far as the eye can see. And the climate is tough, 40 degrees centigrade in summer and minus 40 in winter. A land of nomads since time immemorial, where the nomads have always wandered the mighty steppes in search of grazing for their herds. Using the help of pack animals, this is the animal that is perhaps best at coping with these harsh conditions. A really tough guy. Some miles north along the river, there's a small, wind-blown village of mud houses. The people here live a simple and quiet life that revolves around their herds. This small village stands on historic ground, where the flourishing city of Saratchik once stood. Built in the 12th century by the world's mightiest conqueror, Mongol leader Genghis Khan. Once an important gathering place for his armies, traces of his time can still be found in the soil strata here. Archaeological excavations were abandoned a few years ago when the ruble ran out. Today, this 700-year-old burial site is a playground of the children. It really makes you wonder where we will be 700 years from now. Well, let's go downtown. Now, Guryev is the local metropolis, a town of 150,000 inhabitants, cut into by the Ural River, 2 continents, in fact. On this side lies Europe, and across the bridge, Asia. The swamps all around are full of life. Millions of frogs avidly discussing the day's affairs, while birds of all kinds demonstrate their flying skills. Small fish stand in line to become beluga bait, and they're the ones we're going to catch first. We're a good mixed bunch of old and new hands in this group. Per Ola is a carp fisherman and angling expert. Mats fishes for pike. Örjan, who's our jigging and fly expert. Jana is a wilderness expert, but a novice angler, in actual fact. Oler is our travel arranger and an expert on Russia. Fishing skills? Well. Victor, our Russian interpreter, and an amusing fellow. The real beluga experts are Vladimir, Dmitry, and Gosha, 3 local fishing inspectors whose job will be to stop us getting lost in the delta. Last and smallest, but our most important member, 14-year-old Jim Carlson, a real angler from the far north of Sweden. He fishes in mountain lakes all the year round, and his biggest catch was a 5-kilo fish, but that was before this trip. The water here is gray with silt, and so only bait that can be seen and heard will do. Spinners and jiggers are the absolute best. One of these at the end of the line, and you can't fail. Look. Fishing for bait is a great experience in its own right. We recognize all the fish from our home waters, but none of us has ever seen such a variety of species in one spot, in fresh water. We land a total of about 10 different species. Do you recognize these? Perch, pike, rudd, Eid, bream, and, well, which kind of fish is this? Can you get this one too? Right, it's a zander. And this one, the Russians say the beluga prefers asp, so it's asp we're fishing for. The rest can swim home again. Catching tidbits for the beluga was easy, but now something more difficult is waiting. Now we're going to get the big one. Just hope we don't meet the very biggest, the beluga sturgeon. We've hardly seen a picture of it before.
Om man ska gå efter vad man har hört så måste man agna med minst en spädgris på 4-5 månader. Man ska inte tro allt man hör.
We travel downstream on the dead straight main channel of Ural, towards the delta on the Caspian Sea. Vladimir knows exactly where to go in the delta, and his sharp eyes miss nothing. Suddenly, he turns off and we're heading towards the enormous reeds. He's seen a ripple on the surface nearby. If we were cocky before, well, that's all over now.
Beluga!
Here it comes now, the king of the 27 species of sturgeon in the world. Belugas weighing 1.5 tons have been caught, and monsters like that eat a lot of asp. A concentrated quiet reigns in our boat. Our pike fisherman hasn't been this quiet since we left from home, but now there's a lot to think about. Nothing happens, and the only thing we hear is the frogs until Martin begins to speak the fisherman's language.
Jävlar!
Something bites. Martin strikes directly, but the hook slips. And if we get a beluga, we'll be letting it go. So we don't wait too long with our strikes. Otherwise, there's a risk it will swallow the bait. And we don't want to leave a hook in its stomach.
Ja! Släppte.
Time and time again, the beluga tricks us, seizing the bait, but the hook slips. But suddenly, Jim does it.
Har du? Har du? Och så dra åt bromsen lite. Ja, nu är den här.
Now it's right by the boat.
Nej, du öppnade. Släpp bromsen. In då. Ta det lugnt. Kom igen. Det blir lugg.
Jag kommer att dö. Ta stilen.
Nej, jag tror det blev för struligt för den.
Vladimir is happy. He laughs at these big Western anglers having such a difficult time with his beluga. He makes constant comments and laughs at little Jim's great exploits.
Glinan av det.
Det är dess punkt. Och där släppte. Nej, det kan jag
After half the day, the pike fisherman comes to life. Is he going to hook the beluga?
Passa nu. Nu hoppar den. En större grej, va? Vilken?
Oh no.
Ja, här på 5 stycken. Jag får hoppas jag får upp dem. Kommer få fler. Alla har släppt.
Perhaps the hook is slipping because the skin in the beluga's mouth is so hard. We begin to strike harder and quicker.
Ja. Så ja, så ja, så ja. Nu så. Nu så. Bra. Härligt. 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 Härligt.
But now the line breaks instead.
Om det händer en gång till när den hoppar, sänk spöet och gör en löslina.
Det går ju inte.
Nej, fan.
Det är omöjligt.
Och tugg bra. Så ja. Och så spänn upp linan. Spänn upp. Och så håll spänn linan hela tiden.
Now we have a beluga sitting nicely on the hook, but we have to watch the line so it doesn't snap again.
Låt den gå. Linan är så knabblig där. Så, vänta. Nu tajtar vi upp lite. Vänta. Поймал только он или Егор? Vem det är som fiskar? Ja, precis. Vem fiskar vem? Vem tar vem? Har ni sett det?
Sильнее,
beluga. Jim,
Va?
rätta varmen och håll den längre upp. Rätta varmen och så gör du så med höften. Rätta varmen och så gör du så, ja.
Here it comes. Has the Russian giant really given in? After all, we've been wrestling with it for over half an hour. Is it tired? Because Jim is.
Äntligen.
Malinky, says Vladimir. That means small. But sure, it's small, like Jim himself, around 48 kilos. But all the same, 43 kilos better than his previous personal best.
Kolla alldeles sandpapprig här på ryggen. Är det en beluga det här?
If this little 2-meter one put up such a fight, how are we going to manage to catch a large beluga? Thanks for a good fight, and goodbye, beluga. But is it at all possible to catch a larger beluga? We'll have to see. Sturgeon is a massive industry here. It provides good meat and a half a dozen other products, but its roe is absolutely the most valuable commodity. It provides the world-famous Russian caviar, which comes from these sturgeons, both the beluga and this, the little smaller sevruga. Jars like this earn millions in hard currency for the state monopoly. To ensure top quality requires rapid processing, so the caviar factories on the river are housed aboard boats like these. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Let's climb aboard and have a taste.
Framför mig har vi ett fat med ungefär 1 kilo rysk kaviar som är en halvtimme gammal. Den här är tagen direkt ut ur en sevruga-stör. Och sen har man mixat in en speciell hemlig blandning utav salt och kryddor. Och redan efter 20 minuter så är den här kaviarn färdig att äta. Jag vet inte hur mycket det kan vara i pengar, men det måste ju röra sig om 7-8 tusen kronor. Det här var färsk kaviar, det känns faktiskt. Det är nästan som sprattlar i munnen. Gott.
Our interpreter Victor, on the left here, he really likes these foreign tasting sessions aboard the caviar factories. And for him and for the mayor here, we have a surprise. They're going to taste some Swedish caviar, a whole tube.
А это икра, которую они используют в Швеции. Хотят тоже, чтобы люди из Гурьева попробовали ее.
Thank you very much.
It's tasty.
Is it as good as the Russian caviar?
What do you think?
Honest.
Honest.
Be honest.
No!
No.
Нет. No.
There's more to life on the Ural than fishing and pleasure. Dams built upstream for power generation have robbed the sturgeon of their best spawning grounds, and new threats are turning up all the time. The petrochemical industry, for example, is being built up here and can mean major environmental problems in the future. It was realized quite early that the sturgeon need human help to survive in this new, modern world. The first sturgeon hatcheries started in the 50s, and today 60 million fry are released every year. Without these hatcheries, the sturgeon would now be just a mere memory. And of course, the area would benefit from more angling that would bring in hard currency, as would the sturgeon. Although the locals think angling is a pretty strange business.
Они не понимают необходимости и воспринимают людей, приезжающих с Запада, что они просто, извините, сумасшедшие. Платить кучу денег, $1000, чтобы прилететь сюда через океан, может быть, или как минимум из Скандинавии, и в итоге получить удовольствие от того, что просто бросить спиннинг. Это совершенно непонятно для нормального человека в нашем понимании. Должен сказать, что у нас есть уверенность в будущем. И процесс вылова исключительно поймал, отпусти. Catch and release. Это значит, что одна и та же самая рыба может существовать еще все свои 75-100 лет, сколько ей заслужено Богом. И она может принести достаточную прибыль, доход, так необходимый для местной области.
At last, our crazy gang is beginning to get the hang of fishing beluga, despite everything. Sturgeon is a really big fish for a rod. We're going to rig up a rod to show where everything goes. There's a mixed lot here. Some smaller stuff for fishing bait, but you can use a big Rapala wobbler or the like. In the waters where we are now, you can't do this as there's so much fish. There's a risk of hooking one accidentally somewhere on its body. The most effective approach is a baited hook. Whole fish, fillet, or pieces of fish if you like. Then you just throw it out and let the wind and currents take care of the rest. In this case, we have chosen a Penn Senator, which is a strong and good reel that is suitable for most types of fishing. It takes around 400 meters of 40-pound line. A good break is also very important, as these fish can cover up to 100 meters in one rush. This is a stand-up rod, built so you can stand up and fight a big fish. You place one end of the rod against your waist or in a rod belt and grip high up on the rod, which has a long upper handle, so that you can put great force into your work. With this kind of equipment, we are prepared to say you can tame any sturgeon at all. But then there are those who always have to do things the wrong way around. Urian steps out in the swamp with a broad smile on his face and a fly rod in his hand. The rest of us smile even more. You don't catch giant sturgeons with a fly. Well, don't you worry, we think, when suddenly it happens.
Vad är det där, Nick? Såg? Kan ha varit min det där?
Yes, you've got one hooked, but now what are you gonna do?
Så här ser det ut i stören just nu.
With only 150 meters of line on the reel, you shouldn't expect to land it. But 15 minutes pass, then 30, 45, and the beluga doesn't swim away. The rest of us stop fishing so as to not to disturb this strange duel. It takes 70 minutes and then it's over. Urian has done what has never been done ever before, a world record, of course.
Det här rekordet hamnar i Norrland, närmare bestämt i Piteå. Och den här var 2,33 lång och vägde 80 kilo. Tagen på en numera klassisk fluga, silver beluga. Den här flugan är gjord av kaffepaket och från våran egen julgran. Och för att sätta lite piff på den här så är det då några ögon. Och en 3 mm PVC-slang som turfluga. Enkel krok i storlek cirka 2,0.
Sturgeon can survive for 30 minutes on land. It takes only a few minutes to weigh and measure them. Then they swim home again, tired and very surprised. But isn't fishing with a slingshot just a little too optimistic? Well, not for a carp angler like Perola.
Vi har sett fisk i klassen kanske upp 10-15 kilo som går här inne i det här grunda vattnet. Och det här är någonting som hemma kallar vi det för boilies. Det är alltså en pasta man blandar av olika mjöl och blandar med ägg. Och det älskar karpen, hemma i Sverige i alla fall. Så tar man en slangbälla och skjuter ut såna här några dagar och sen har man ett superfiske.
But the carp here haven't heard about these boilies pellets, so they're not biting tonight, despite Perola mustering all his technical skills. The Russians are very impressed when Perola rigs up his 3 rods. They've never seen or heard anything like this before.
När linan rör sig så får man en ljud och en ljussignal som talar om att det här spöet hugger det på. Sen lite längre in här så har vi någonting som man kallar för monkey climber eller klätterapa. Det ser otroligt läckert ut och bara i mörkret ser det här lilla gröna ljuset som klättrar upp och ner för en pinne och visar att det är ett hugg som rasar iväg med full fart.
Well, not this time anyway. But then it's the Russians' turn to impress us. Vladimir begins with a giant pike and then shows a dejected Perola what a carp looks like. Our friends top this off with a couple of catfish weighing 35 kilos. The delta is beginning to get quite crowded with beluga. It's early May and the sturgeon spawning period has just begun. The small fish really have to fight to survive. The beluga is a ruthless predator despite its lack of teeth. Small fish are just sucked in when it opens its enormous mouth. In this turbid water, nobody can see anything, so that's why its eyes are minimal. Instead, it's developed 4 sensitive barbels to sense its prey with. The beluga can live to be 100 years old, and Vladimir wants to show some respect and talk to them.
Айда, белуга, сюда, айда. Вот, все, айда. Айда сюда, айда. Вот, айда сюда. О, хорошая. Уговаривать надо. Говорить надо. Хорошая. И все, спокойно. А то тащите вы. Надо очень аккуратно. Она же здесь хозяйка, в конце концов. О, хорошая, видишь? Окей.
We are having some fantastic fishing these last days. Well, you wouldn't have believed us if we hadn't taken these pictures.
Shit.
Маленький.
Perola caught the largest beluga, 130 kilos. Jim finally got one weighing 120 kilos, 72 more than himself. Some 60 beluga were caught, and all were put back. And besides, the group spent foreign exchange equivalent to 500 times the local annual wage. So you could say that everybody won.